Thank you for joining us this afternoon, America, on this special episode of Indivisible with John Stubbins. I'm your host, John Stubbins, and thank you for joining us. This special episode today, we're going to be discussing Black Lives Matter and the saying Black Lives Matter or White Lives Matter or Asian Lives Matter or Italian Lives Matter, which in the case of Columbus, Ohio, obviously today they don't. They're taking down the statue of Christopher Columbus. I think it was yesterday or last night that we were told that they're going to be taking down Abraham Lincoln's statue as well. So I don't know where all this is going, but it's not going anyplace good. So back to today's show. Black Lives Matter, saying those words versus the movement of Black Lives Matter, or the so-called movement, which is a total lie. And we'll get into all that in a minute. I've got tons of notes. I've done weeks of research in preparation for this. And I've been following this story since back to the Trayvon Martin incident, on to Ferguson with Mike Brown, that whole situation. We'll get into that. So saying that someone's life matters should be common sense. I think we all agree that Black Lives Matter as a saying, as a statement that we can all believe in, that we understand, that all Americans are behind. George Floyd being killed the way he was wrong. Everybody acknowledges that. Police departments across the country acknowledge that. American citizens with a brain acknowledge that. But we're into something much different now. We're into something else. A movement that, like I said, started back with the Trayvon Martin incident on to Ferguson, Missouri. So again, saying it's one thing, of movements another. So the statement versus the movement. So let's get into that. And by the way, as we do this, I'm not using a teleprompter, so I'm going to be reading from all my research and my notes here. By the way, BLM has removed their true agenda from their website. I want to make sure that you know that, except for defund police. That is the one thing that they left up. So as we move on, I want to start by calling out the NBA, LeBron James, Hollywood, Farrakhan, Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, John Legend and his wife, Cuomo, de Blasio, Gavin Newsom, the Mayor Garcia of Los Angeles, Pelosi, Schumer, Schiff, Clyburn, Nadler, AOC, Omar, Tlaib, Presley, Obama, Biden, Clinton. Where were you? Nowhere is where. I want to say this. Growing up, two of my best friends were Black. We lived in the same neighborhood together, grew up together, best friends, played ball together. One of my best friends went to Catholic schools. I didn't. My parents couldn't afford it. We grew up with no privilege, no white privilege. And you know what? I never begrudged him. I was thrilled for him. He was one of my best friends in the world. So nonsense. I played football, basketball with these guys. And then we have race pimps like Al Sharpton out there stoking up these flames, along with all these other people that I named. Spike Lee, Samuel L. Jackson, Ice Cube. These are all people that want Black power. They want Black takeover. That's what this is all about. So we're going to dive right in now. And the Liberation Road and Black Lives Matter movement. The Black Lives Matter movement is a communist movement, period. We discussed this last night with my guest, Trevor Loudon. The Black Lives Matter propaganda story is that three young Black friends, Alicia Garza, Patrisse Cullors, and Opel Tometi, were grieving after the 2012 killing of Florida teenager Trayvon Martin. They mourned for the young Black men being systematically persecuted, which is a lie, and murdered by law enforcement, which they say is going on every day by the thousands Another lie. And as the story goes, together they devised the hashtag Black Lives Matter, which is BLM, which just so happens to now be a worldwide movement that people have been duped into buying. Communists, and these are communists, make no mistake about it, they're tied to the communists. The hashtag only got traction because the FRSO and the OSCL, which we discussed last night before the name changed to Liberation Road, enjoyed a sympathetic media and armies of activists that were aligned with groups such as Committee Against Anti-Asian Violence, the CAAAV, Project South, the Center for Media Justice, and Showing Up for Racial Justice. Communists are skilled at presenting a narrative as they are masters of deception. All three of these women were not friends inspired by injustice, but rather seasoned far-left activists to move a Maoist agenda forward. Alicia Garza worked and aligned with organizations like People Organized to Win, Employment Rights, the School of Unity and Liberation, War Times, and the Right to the City Alliance. In 2014, Garza was involved in a Mapping Socialist Strategies retreat in upstate New York, which was organized by the New York affiliate of the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation. That's a German-based group founded and led by senior members of the former East German Communist Party. Currently, she is a leader of Left Roots, a FRSO/Liberation Road spinoff organization. Opel Tometi was executive director of Black Alliance for Just Immigration. Her predecessor was Gerald Lenore, a former leader of the Maoist-leaning Line of March organization. On June 4th, 2015, Opel Tometi visited the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation in Berlin, where she spoke about so-called racist police violence in America and accomplishments of the Black Lives Matter movement. Patrisse Cullors. She was mentored in Los Angeles by Eric Mann, a lifelong Maoist and former member of SDS, the Weathermen, and the League of Revolutionary Struggle. In January 2015, Patrisse Cullors traveled to the Palestinian territories with a delegation of BLM activists to witness firsthand the effects of Israeli apartheid and occupation, they say. One of Cullors' fellow American delegates, Dream Defender Ahmad Abaznade, is the son of Nabeel Abaznade, a close friend and advisor to Yasser Arafat, the late leader of the terrorist Palestinian Liberation Organization, or PLO. Now, exploiting the Ferguson, Missouri violence. The day after the police-involved shooting of Michael Brown, FRSO and the OSCL quickly took charge of the ensuing events. And when they did that, this, by the way, this was led by former Black Panther and longtime FRSO and OSCL comrade Jamala Rogers. In the spring of 2015, the New York, New Jersey district of FRSO OSCL sponsored a forum entitled Ferguson. The movement so far and lessons for coming struggles. Speakers included chair of the St. Louis OBS, Montague Simmons, and co-director of the Justice Committee, Loida Colon. She's a Latino led organization, this Justice Committee, dedicated to building a movement against police violence and systematic racism in New York City. This is according to an advertisement for that meeting. Speaking for the first time, they say, in New York City since the police murder of Michael Brown, the chair of OBS, which played a major role in the Ferguson protests, discuss the new strategies, organizational forms, and social forces that emerged there and how the movement was sustained. Loida Colon will reflect on the Justice Committee's work organizing with families directly impacted by police violence and will share their thoughts on the current movement in New York City. Together, they will share their thoughts on key questions for the movements against police abuse that are erupting around the country. How do we hold together broad, unified fronts with different generations, cultures, classes, and political perspectives? What's the role of anti-capitalist and socialists, they say? Well, what kind of policing reforms do we want, and how do they translate to other issues in our communities and to radical social transformation? At the meeting, Montague Simmons casually told the assembled comrades that OBS had brought in just under 10,000 out-of-town activists to participate in the protest. So, back to Ferguson. 10,000 out-of-town protesters were brought in. The city burned, looting, riots. You know all about it. We've seen it again here recently. And this is what it comes to. 10,000 they brought in. Okay? Black Lives Matter today is coordinated nationwide by an umbrella group called the Movement for Black Lives, or MBL. Several Liberation Road comrades, I love how they use the word comrades. Again, this tells you about their communist ties, work through MBL, including former FRSO OSCL national organizer Kazim Jackson and East Tennessee-based activist Ash-Lee Henderson. MBK has been coordinating protests across the nation through Zoom conference calls. On May 30th, MBL convened an In Defense of Black Lives National Week of Action call, where the comrades, their term, discussed coordinated protest activity. Moderators were Bay Area Black Lives Matter activist Carissa Lewis and New York-based MBL strategist Lubamba Bandel. Participants included Miska Noor of the Black Visions Collective in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Noor previously worked for Minnesota Attorney General and former Congressman Keith Ellison, who is now the Attorney General in that state, and worked for him for 3 years on foreign affairs, immigration, and outreach to the Muslim community. Yeah. Stealth jihad. Yeah, we know all about it. Chanel Helm of the Louisville, Kentucky chapter of Black Lives Matter. Kayla Reed of Action St. Louis. Reed is a former Ferguson protester and organizer for Black Struggle member. Kayla Reed Kayla was identified as an organizer of the 2017 protests that turned violent in St. Louis suburb of University City after a police officer was found innocent of murder after shooting a heroin dealer who engaged police in a high-speed chase. And then there's Shanair Tutashinda of the Blackout Collective based in the Bay Area of California. So, and we also have Philip Agnew of the Dream Defenders based in Miami, Florida. Agnew is a former surrogate for presidential candidate Bernie Sanders, who has led at least 2 BLM delegations to the Palestinian territories. On June 6th, MBL held another forum entitled Making Meaning of this Moment, Forging an Abolitionist Strategy for Defending Black Communities. Advertised with a picture of a burning apartment building in Minneapolis. Participants there included veteran columnist Angela Davis, who is now close to Liberation Road, Natanya Lee of Left Roots, and Kayla Reed and Carissa Lewis of MBL. So then they went on to state that the invitation states in part the compounding crisis of COVID-19 and increased police brutality speaks to the interconnected nature of white supremacy, racial capitalism, and the role of state-sanctioned terrorism. Get that? State-sanctioned terrorism. Our communities continue to be over-policed and underserved. That is the backdrop to righteous anger and uprisings we have seen these past few weeks. So this is coming from them. And I can go on and on and on. They want to bring down President Trump with their revolution. This is all communist-based, all malice-based, all Islamic jihadist-based. So how many people in America have been duped by this lie of hands up, don't shoot, which never happened? There is no way we're going to give these liars a pass. To the corporations like the NFL that have endorsed it, shame on you. To the college indoctrination centers that think that they're on the cutting edge somehow of wokeness, no, wrong. What you're doing is endorsing black racism. That's what you're doing. And the ultimate overthrow of the United States. And we're going to get into more numbers here in a little bit. How, you ask? Okay, well, let me explain. BLM is completely based on a lie, like I've said. But it goes much deeper, much darker than that. Maybe the NFL and all these corporations that are standing and supporting Black Lives Matter, or BLM, maybe they should have done some, research to find out the roots of this organization that they support. So this is treason. In my view, this is treason to the United States, because the ultimate goal here is to overthrow the United States government. So who is BLM? The so-called black racist group, Black Lives Matter, or BLM. This movement was born again out of the justified shooting deaths of Trayvon Martin and out of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, who had just robbed a store and then ran into Officer Darren Wilson, who was doing his job when he attempted to stop Michael Brown and arrest him. Michael Brown then went on to assault the police officer, charge the police officer, try to get his gun. He ended up getting shot when charging the officer. The officer's life was threatened, and instead of cooperating, he decided to assault the officer. So Officer Wilson shot him justifiably, and this was proven by the Obama and Biden DOJ that went into Ferguson to investigate. This was a civil rights investigation. Riots ensue. Anarchists burn down Ferguson. Store looting begins. So this BLM so-called movement is born. And the lie is told that Michael Brown had his hands up and said, don't shoot. Right? This never happened. It's a lie. So the entire movement, the entire premise behind the movement is a lie. The whole narrative is a lie. I told you about these three black lesbian radicals, Alicia Garza, Opel Tometi, and Patrice Coolers, that started this movement based on lies. Well, they went on to perpetuate the lies and their false narrative in protest marches where followers, they would lie to their followers all the way, and they would chant, what do we want? Dead cops. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Dead cops. When do we want it? Now. They did this in the streets all over America. And you remember this. It was on national television. And they went on to chant this as well. Pigs in a blanket. fry them like bacon. Pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. So who are these women that started this? Okay? And by the way, Americans, we are supposed to defend America against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. And make no mistake, BLM is a domestic terrorist organization. That's what they are. The political agenda of these three women is to destroy and completely obliterate the rule of law in America. They want to rebuild the Black Liberation Army and movement, impose Marxism on the USA. And by the way, this was all on their website until they took it down. They still have defund police, but this was on their website. Everybody knows it. They could try to hide it, but we already got it. We already examined everything. Okay? So they use the lie of there being systematic racism in this country as the premise for their agenda. Here's a quote from this group, these three women, these three racists. Black people bear the burden of state-sponsored experiments that attempt to squeeze them into boxes of normality defined by white supremacist state violence. Again, this was on the website. It was taken down. As we discussed last night on my show, when I had Trevor Loudon and we were exposing them in the Maoist movement and Chinese Communist Party and Islamic Jihad ties to BLM and Antifa, we talked about this. We talked about the racism, the agenda, but BLM is a Maoist-connected, funded movement and a jihadist movement. So all their offshoot groups, same thing. So I wanted to point that out. They are linked with the Black Panther Party, the Black Liberation Army, as I stated, the Weather Underground, and Islamic Jihad, and most especially the Democratic Party, which we got into last night. The socialists as well, George Soros, Tom Steyer. And by the way, nice try, Soros, trying to remake the Acorn group from the original Obama election. That group was broken up because they were breaking the law. And Soros simply started a new group with a new name, same people, same radical agenda. You can look it up. It's happening right now, right underneath your nose. Any systematic racism in America is happening in liberal Democrat-run cities. If you feel like you're oppressed in those cities, I have a question. Why are you voting for these people? The mayors, the police chiefs, city councils, prosecutors, attorney generals, judges, you're putting these people in positions of power, and yet you cry racism. Okay? What about their racism? Many of these cities are run by black mayors, black police chiefs, black DAs, city councils. They lie to you and you buy it. You buy the lie. Why? Is it because they're black? Please tell me. That seems racist to me, right? We're doing the racist thing, right? So that seems racist to me. And are you okay with black racism, black oppression against white people or Asian people or Italian people or against cities or against cops? Are you okay with segregation? I thought we did away with that. That's what they want. I thought black Americans didn't want segregation. Why did we have the civil rights era? Was that a lie as well? By the way, wasn't Lyndon B. Johnson a Democrat? Yeah, I thought so. Didn't he give us the Great Society? Welfare, food stamps, removing the black fathers from the home, which is a huge problem. The fatherless issue in the black community, 73%. How's that? That's a disgrace. Do some research, people. Do your homework. Find out. Study history. Don't accept these lies. Dr. Martin Luther King was a Republican, not a Democrat. He didn't trust Democrats. Can you imagine if he was alive today watching this evil agenda unfold? He would call it out, just like I am. Yes, Republicans are the party that fought for civil rights. Democrats tried to stop Black people from having civil rights. Republicans freed the slaves. Democrats opposed it. And by the way, I'm tired of hearing about how it was white people that brought slavery to America. The first slave owner in America was a Black man, and he brought the slaves over from Africa. So stop it. Tired of hearing it. Republicans fought for the Emancipation Act. The Democrats are the party of Jim Crow. The Democrats blew up Black churches. The Democrats hung Black people from trees. The Democrats raped Black women. Again, do some research. Look it up. It's all there. Okay? It's in our history of America. All you got to do is get off your lazy butt and go look. So, why do you think Democrats are tearing down everything now? They're so desperate to erase history. So you don't see the truth, right? I just saw yesterday, now they want, like I said, they want to bring down the Abraham Lincoln statue. Excuse me, President Lincoln, he fought to help Blacks become free. Yeah, that's right. Another Republican. When the Democrats started the KKK, it was the Republicans that went to stop them. It was Lincoln. So let's get this real straight. After all of this, all these facts, all this history, you still listen to the Democrats and their lies. And they do this fake hearing deal every 4 years when it's election time because they want power about caring about the Black community. We see it every 4 years. And guess what? After Trump, if it's Mike Pence, they'll call him a racist. They did the same thing with Bush. They did the same thing with Romney. They did the same thing with McCain. They did the same thing with Reagan. They're all racist. It's a lie. You've been bamboozled. You've been duped. So let's get this straight, Black community. Every 4 years when it's election time, you vote for these morons. You vote for these morons that you say are oppressing you. These are your cities. You buy their BS. So how is it President Trump's fault? He's done more for the Black community than any president since Reagan. Those are facts. Don't like it? Tough. Look it up. It's true. How are Republicans the problem? Really? How dumb are you? I really want to know. Isn't Chicago run by a Black mayor? What about Baltimore, Washington, D.C., Atlanta? Please explain to me how 92 people were murdered in Chicago last weekend and we didn't see riots. Why weren't there riots? What about last year? Chicago led the nation in murder. No riots, right? It's an election year. So, explain to me how Black Lives Matter, how they matter so much to Black people when since 1973, there have been 20 million abortions. 20 million abortions since 1973 of Black babies. I guess those Black lives didn't matter, right? The Democrats, BLM, they're hypocrites. And that's because all of this is a distraction for what they really want, which is power. This is the Maoist movement. This is Islamic Jihad. This is black power, right? These morons say that they want to defund the police. Why? I'll tell you why. Because the Democrats are in bed with these groups, like Islamic Jihad, like the Chinese Communist Party, Antifa, the Black Panthers. They don't want police around to challenge their lawlessness. They want to murder, loot, burn, steal, assault with impunity. They don't want anybody to interfere with their criminal behavior. Smarten up. Smarten up, people. That's what's going on here. They want innocent Americans, Trump supporters, most specifically. Why they're getting blamed, I have no idea. These are the people that are helping you. But they want conservatives, Christians, Jews, veterans, law enforcement, military, all out of the way so they can take over, destroy America, destroy our Constitution, have zero law enforcement. So it's the Wild West out there, right? They've already infiltrated our schools. They've already brought Marxism into the schools. There is no free speech on these left-leaning college campuses. The media, the fake news media, they're complicit too, majorly complicit. And then they've infiltrated our government as well. We've got Islamic jihadists like Keith Ellison, Omar, Tlaib, Presley. They're all there. They're in our government now. Clyburn. This Islamic jihad agenda, this stealth jihad, if you read about stealth jihad, I encourage you to. It's about destroying us from within. That's what it's about. And believe me, it's happening. Once they've infiltrated everything and completed the indoctrination of our kids, I guess the game will be over. There'll be nothing else left for them to do except, I guess, kill us, right? So yeah, the Democrats smile with glee as thugs burn, assault, loot, and murder. They love it. BLM doesn't want the police around, but they want the Black Panther Party to rule the streets. They want the Black Liberation Army. They want Islamic jihadists to rule the streets. Yeah, that's what they want. Those thugs, black supremacy. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio has a no bail policy to help his thug army in New York City. Look at this. Was it yesterday or the day before? This black thug, he shoves a 92-year-old woman, a white woman, to the ground. She's just walking with her walker. He's walking the opposite direction, shoves her in the head, her head almost hits the fire hydrant, which could have killed her instantly. This thug has been arrested 104 times. 104 times. And yet he's walking the street. Why? Because de Blasio kisses criminals' butts in New York City. I call him the blowhard. So, get this right, New York City. The blowhard cracks down on police officers. Shame on them for doing their job. He stops them from doing their job, but he kisses the butts of the thugs. No bail, no accountability. Get arrested, back on the street within 24 hours to go commit another crime. I think it was 2,500 criminals were released since COVID-19 started. Out of that, 250 have reoffended and been arrested over 450 times. This is assault. This is murder, looting, arson to your city. And you voted for this idiot. At what point do these thugs, BLM, or white Antifa, at what point do they have to pay for their criminal behavior? Please tell me. When is enough enough? When are you going to make a stand? I'm sick of hearing about how law enforcement is the problem, right? They're the problem. They need to make adjustments. they need police reform. It's a bunch of nonsense. 99% of cops out there are great cops. They do a great job. Are there idiots out there like the dummy who murdered George Floyd in Minnesota? Absolutely. Is he a racist? I don't know. I don't know what's in his heart, but I know he committed murder. Okay? That's different than what happened in Atlanta that we saw in the news yesterday. Completely different case. Don't try to conflate the two. Okay? Because that's what they do. BLM does that all the time. That's how they try to spin the narrative and keep it going. And they say that these are thousands. It's happening every day. That's a lie. Okay? So when are these groups going to be held accountable? These thugs. The facts tell a much different story than the media would have you know, the fake news media. How they tell us, by the way, the reality, they don't want to talk about the reality. They want to talk about these lying Democrats and BLM and the lies that they're spreading to America, right? So because the NFL signs on with you and endorses you, or Amazon sends you money, that makes you just? That makes you truthful? No. That means that the NFL and Amazon and any other corporation that's giving these idiots money, they haven't done their research. They don't even know who they're supporting. That's how dumb they are. Okay? So, these traitors, they want police to just stand there, take bullets to the head, bricks to the head, and just take it. That's what they want. They want them to kiss the feet of BLM and Al Sharpton, Louis Farrakhan. They're insane. These people are insane. They actually want the cops to stand there and get assaulted and do nothing. They're not allowed to police, right? They're not allowed to defend themselves. You're so full of crap. The finger is being pointed at everyone except the criminals and the anarchists, like BLM and the Democrats and the DC mayor, another scumbag. I mean, it just kills me. Just like the Baltimore mayor with what happened in Baltimore a couple years ago. Let them loot, let them burn, let them have some space to do their damage, right? It's just unbelievable. Make no mistake about it. BLM is a terrorist organization, a domestic terrorist organization. That is not the same thing as saying Black Lives Matter or White Lives Matter. Again, the saying versus this group. Two different things. You need to know that. But they are. Okay, so during the first week of the so-called peaceful protest, Democrats said that police were too harsh with protesters. Really? Okay, the Democrats are out of their gourds. We know that. Like I said, they want police to just stand there. I guess BLM's ties to Hamas and Hezbollah and Maduro have them too busy to care about Americans, right? They're too busy gaming the system. And explain this to me. How do you get welfare and food stamps and show up at food banks wearing brand new Nikes and Rolex watches and pulling up in a brand new car and carrying Gucci purses and iPhones, but you need food stamps and food banks? Where's your shame? Where's the humbleness? I mean, it just shocks the conscience at how incredible these people are and how they've duped society. I mean, it really is. And I go on, the only way to reach these idiots is through feelings. That's what Jesse Waters said a couple days ago on The Five. Seems almost impossible for many of these morons. It's simply about anarchy and destroying America, he said. Tucker Carlson, he said, BLM means defund the police, and that's true. Also, the repeal of all immigration restrictions. They also want prostitution to be legal, right? The destruction of the nuclear family. That means you and your family. The forced relocation, the forced reallocation of farmland. So they're saying that BLM deserves farmers' farmland now, right? To be paid back for reparations. So again, and then and Tucker went on to say, race-based reparations, specifically in the form of a guaranteed minimum livable income for all Black people, not just the descendants of slaves either. This would include the millions of African and Caribbean immigrants who, on average, now earn more than native-born Americans. Let that sink in. Every single one of these new Americans would receive a guaranteed annual income from American taxpayers in order to atone for the sin of what? This is what Tucker Carlson said. For the sin of what? Because there's nobody alive today that owns slaves. So what exactly is our sin? I want to know that. But yeah, these are about reparations. This is what they want. And this is how they've laid it out. And Tucker brings up a great point. BLM has yet to explain this. Okay? For what? Allowing them to immigrate here? These people? They get reparations because we allowed them to immigrate here. Is that it? BLM doesn't explain this at all. And by the way, you can be fired for asking that question. What you cannot be punished for if your BLM is looting and burning and murder, hundreds of millions of dollars in damage. Rioters all released without charges. Police get all the blame, right? No one pushes back against the lies like systematic racism, which is a lie, and white supremacy being blamed, but not these thugs and criminals, right? Okay, well, the biggest problem that we've got here, again, is that BLM has not been officially designated by the president as a domestic terrorist organization. Why is that? I think it's because he's trying to help the Black community and he doesn't want to create waves. But the truth is the president's going to have to do it because they're not going to stop. Just like Trevor and I talked about last night on the show. They're not going to stop. This is about power. This is about destroying our Constitution, destroying our rule of law, destroying America. That's the end game here. So BLM, what do they tell their people? Do they tell them to stop resisting arrest? No. They tell them to go loot and burn. They tell them the murder is okay, as long as it's a white man, right? Or a cop. So, here's what I would tell them. Stop breaking the damn law. If you don't want police to bother you, stop breaking the law. Because in these Black communities, it's other Black people calling the cops on bad Black people. Right? That's what's happening in Black communities. Dinesh D'Souza, by the way, he's correct. He said, BLM and Antifa have replaced the KKK as the paramilitary arm of the Democratic Party. And he is absolutely right. We must draw a separation, a distinction, like I said, between the movement and the saying. And I'm going to keep saying that because that's what it has to happen here. Greg Gutfeld on the 5. He talked about cops pulling back, no proactive policing anymore. He calls that the Ferguson effect. And I understand that because it's right. He's right. Police aren't going to respond anymore until after the crime's been committed. So in these Black communities where they need policing the most, where's the cops going to respond to? Nope. They're going to hold back. Blacks, 25% less are getting shot after arrest. These people want a race war. No white officers are more likely to shoot someone who's Black than someone who's non-white. I mean, it's just these statistics as I go through them, it drives me nuts. For every one violent offender a black man has with a white police officer, 700 black men kill other blacks. Right? For every one, 700. Tell me about the racism against white people. Please. Please, I want to hear it. In an average year, 981 white people are murdered by black people. 375 black people are murdered by white people. These are facts. Police killed, here's statistics on people killed by police from the Justice Department. 2017, 457 white people killed by police, 223 black. 2018, 399 white people killed by police, 209 black. 2019, 370 white, 235 black. 2020, 172 white, 88 black. And what are we halfway through the year? 40% of cops are murdered. 40% of cops murdered are by blacks. Blacks make up 13% of the U.S. population, but they commit 53% of murders, 38% of violent crime, 27% of drug crime, 60% of robberies, more than any other race, by the way. Cops are 18% more likely to be killed by a black man than the other way around. Okay? And by the way, there are plenty of white people that are out here suffering in America that have no privilege, as you call it. Why is it that only people of color get money and help from all these organizations? I guess if you burn buildings and loot and murder and assault people, that you'll get money from Hollywood and all these leftist anti-American organizations. All you got to do is jump up and down with a temper tantrum like a child. Most decent Americans work for a living, and they don't have time to protest every day. But make no mistake, you protesters, we outnumber you. And if we ever come into the streets and it's mano a mano because you want to kill us, well, guess what? You're in big trouble. Violently resisting arrest doesn't show up in these stats either. It doesn't show up. So the unarmed part of it is misleading because sometimes these are unarmed people that are resisting arrest. Bureau of Justice stats, 2018. Black on white violence, 547,948, which is 90.16% of interracial incidents. These are black on whites. This is a black man committing a crime against white people, 90.16% of the time. White on black violence, 59,777, which is 9.84% of interracial incidents. So where's the accountability by black people for their behavior, for their criminal behavior? They're pointing the finger at cops and white people and President Trump and conservatives and everybody else, all based on lies. And why? Why are they pointing the finger? I'd like to know, because it's them that's doing the crime. 2019 stats. Out of 10 million arrests, 10 million, police were involved with fatal shootings 1,004 times. 41 of those were unarmed people, where 41 people were shot. 19 were white, 9 were black. 89 cops, by the way, were killed in the line of duty in 2019. Right? Weekend before last, 82 people shot in Chicago in just 48 hours. Nothing. Wall Street Journal, a police officer, like I said, 18% more likely to be killed by a black male than an unarmed black male is to be killed by a police officer. I want to go back to the fatherless issue for a minute, because in America, and this goes for black households, white, Hispanic, everybody, there's not going to be any bowing down here or condoning this criminal behavior. But try obeying the law. We need fathers back in the homes, because obviously there are none, right? But try obeying the law. Try teaching your kids to do the same thing. Stop killing each other. Stop murdering your people in your cities. Maybe try not, getting pregnant all the time, by men that don't care about you. Where are your morals? It just, we end up with the fatherless issue, and we've got all these kids running around with no fathers. I'd say that's a problem. 73% in the black community. And it's terrible in the white community as well. It's much lower, but the statistics since the 60s and 70s have grown exponentially, and they're out of control. It's ridiculous. The Democratic Party is the one oppressing you. Make no mistake about it. It's their cities. They run them. You voted for them. So how stupid are you? I go back to that because I cannot believe that you keep voting for these people. It's just mind-boggling. I brought this up months ago, but it's a real discussion. If we're not going to have police, if we're going to defund police, we're not going to pay taxes, right? Why are we going to pay taxes if we're not going to do anything and the judges and the prosecutors are just going to let criminals go? Why? And by the way, it's time for the Justice Department to step in now, because free speech is not being allowed. It's being censored. Conservatives, Trump supporters, Christians, Jews, anybody that the left or the Democrats or BLM doesn't agree with politically, they're being silenced. So now it's time for the Department of Justice to step in, and we're going to take control, because this has gone on long enough, and the DOJ needs to now follow through on withholding money to colleges, running these indoctrination centers, and stifling free speech. We've had it. Enough is enough. And you want to talk about reparations? You better talk to the Democrats, BLM, because no one alive owes you a penny. Did Captain David Dorn's life matter? You laughed at him as they filmed him live on Facebook. He was murdered. You laughed at him. BLM, the movement, is a lie. Those are the facts. Now, you know where I stand on this. Okay? So, and by the way, a couple things here. I want to get to, we've got about 6 minutes left. I want to get to a couple things. If you believe in America and you're a patriot, 3 things I want to tell you about. Vote for pro-Constitution candidates. Demand that all congressmen and congresswomen that you're voting for pass a background check before serving on any committee in Washington. Write down this HR 3892. And this is Muslim Brotherhood Terrorist Designation Act of 2015. I want you to write those things down. If you have to, go back and review the show again so that you can write that down. But you heard what he said on Brett Baier yesterday. He gave no credit to the president for everything that he's done for the black community, the Second Step Act, police reform, nothing. He went on TV, national TV, and stood there and lied to the black community and to all of America. And it's just unbelievable. And he, and he, look, he's the people that are fleeing oppression from elsewhere that all blacks came for in chains of slaves. That's a lie. And this is indeed a spiritual battle. As much as it is political and all these other things and who you vote for, this is a battle of good versus evil, people. Make no mistake about that. Again, stop breaking the law. You won't have these problems. I also want to talk about American history. We need to bring American history back in all of our schools at every level, and it needs to be taught. Does anyone from any race out there truly believe that we should live in a country with no law and order? I wanted to ask that question. Are you okay with police being defunded and eliminated nationwide? Okay? Because if you do, we're going to have Wild Wild West, and you are going to be on your own. The facts that, the facts are that Black people are committing crimes and breaking the law. And I don't hear anyone addressing that. Anyone. They try to change the subject when you bring it up. My question to those people is, who won't answer, a simple question is, why won't you answer that question? Black people, like I said, are calling the police on Black criminals in their neighborhoods. Why? Because Black criminals are breaking the law and are committing crimes. The numbers go even higher when Black criminals are committing crimes against white people, which I gave you earlier in the statistics. Everyone, like I said, man, everyone's welcome on this show, but we're not going to lie. We're going to tell you the truth. And that's just the way that it is. And I don't care if NASCAR or the NFL or anybody else, any college president decides that they're going to side with Black Lives Matter. They're wrong. They've been duped. They haven't done their research. But make no mistake about it. The truth's going to come out. And you are siding, you are standing, you are giving money to a domestic terrorist organization. We just aren't going to play these games anymore with the Democratic Party. It's time to come out swinging. And if they want to fight, we're going to give it to them. But if this goes on and people don't stand up, the United States is finished. You can mark that down. We're either going to be equal or we're not. So make up your mind. If we're not going to be equal, let's all play by those rules. It's just mind-boggling. And I can go on and on and on. But before I go, the last thing that I want to do, and I'm just going to spout them off quickly. It's just insane. White female torn from her vehicle, stomped in the street by BLM during riot in York, Pennsylvania, right? Mayor Ginther decides to bring down the Christopher Columbus statue. It just goes on and on and on. Mob rule, mob justice threatens the rule of law. Warlord Roz hands out rifles in Seattle from his Tesla trunk. I mean, all these lies. And now they're taking down, Aunt Jemima pancake bags, Uncle Ben's rice. Here are the heroes whose statues Black Lives Matter have attacked. This is Kavanaugh. It just goes on and on and on. Antifa thug arrested. The rise of the police officer exodus. I can go on and on and on. But the news out there every day now is ridiculous. We're bombarded with all these stories of depressing news of people getting hurt. People, white people are being assaulted all over the country right now. Don't get caught with a Trump hat on, because a gang is going to come up and beat the crap out of you. Maybe you'll die. Nobody seems to care, right? It really blows your mind. And people need to start looking in the mirror and doing some soul searching. This movement, this BLM movement, the people that have been duped by this, I feel really sorry for you. But I know that some of you are in this just for the anarchy. I know you love it. Shame on you. You are the people that need to be dealt with. And I pray that the Department of Justice and the president deals with you. Look, America, you know where I stand on these issues. I've been very clear about it. I could have gone on longer, but I went through so many notes. It's exhausting even talking about this because these are lies. It's nonsense. Look, thank you for joining us today on this special program dealing with BLM, the lies. And I'm going to close this until I see you next time. All lives matter. Thanks for joining us.